She didn't even flinch when I walked past her. Not a glance. Not even that polite half-smile you give to someone you're trying to pretend you still care about. Just nothing. I stood there in that overlit living room, surrounded by the clinking of glasses and fake laughter, feeling like an unwelcome shadow. I watched her across the room, leaning in close to her boss, Vincent, while he told some story I couldn't hear. She laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard from her in months. I don't know why, but in that moment, I realized I wasn't even on her radar. I was a piece of furniture at her boss's party, something to fill the space, to make her look like the perfect, stable wife. I kept telling myself, don't overthink this, Leonard. It's just work. It's just how she's climbing the ladder. But every time I tried to catch her eye, she turned away. She wasn't just ignoring me. It felt like she was pretending I didn't exist. So I left. I didn't announce it, didn't try to start some scene. I just walked out into the cold, got into my car, and sat there for a moment staring at the steering wheel like it was the only thing left holding my world together. The music and chatter from the party echoed faintly behind me as I drove off. I was halfway home when my phone buzzed. Her message popped up on the screen, glowing like a ghost in the dark car. Please come back. No explanation. No apology. Just those words. And in that moment, something in me cracked. Not just anger, not just confusion. It was this deep, ugly fear that I was losing her in ways I couldn't even begin to understand. I stared at that text for so long, I nearly missed the next turn. Please come back. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, where did you go? Just those 3 words, like a command, as if I was supposed to jump and run back to her side, because she'd finally noticed I wasn't there. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I wanted to throw my phone out the window, but instead, I pulled over into a dark gas station parking lot and just sat there, trying to make sense of what I was feeling. Every part of me screamed that I should turn around, that I was overreacting. But another part, the part that had been ignored, dismissed, and treated like background noise, refused. Why should I go back? She hadn't looked at me once the entire evening. I was a stranger at that party, just some random guy hovering around while she soaked in the attention of her boss and his friends. What would going back even accomplish? Would I just stand there again, like some prop she forgot she brought? I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired, weak, like a man who had lost all control of his life. And maybe I had. I kept replaying everything I saw at that party. The way her hand brushed Vincent's arm, the way she leaned in close when he whispered something in her ear, the way she laughed like he was the most interesting man alive. She never laughs like that with me anymore. When was the last time she even looked at me like I mattered? I typed out a reply, why? But then I deleted it. Why give her the satisfaction of knowing I cared that much? But who was I kidding? I cared too much. I cared so much it made me feel sick. I wanted answers, and I knew I wasn't going to get them by driving away and pretending nothing happened. Something in me, some pathetic, desperate part, needed to know why she sent that text. So, against every ounce of pride I had left, I turned the car around. The closer I got back to the mansion, the heavier my chest felt. My headlights cut through the night as I pulled into the long driveway, the sound of distant music still drifting from inside. I sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel. If I walked back in there, I wasn't going to just stand in the corner this time. I was going to find out what was going on. I was going to look her in the eye and ask her why she felt the need to beg me to come back after ignoring me all night. As I stepped out of the car and approached the house, I saw something through the window that froze me where I stood. It was her, Sabrina, standing with Vincent again, but this time, they weren't laughing. They were close. Too close. His hand was on her back, and I swear I saw her hand on his chest. My stomach dropped. Was I seeing this right? Or was my mind just twisting every detail because I was already insecure? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't just walk away this time. The second I pushed the door open, I felt like I'd stepped into a completely different world. The music was softer now, almost drowned out by the low hum of voices and the clinking of glasses. The crowd had thinned, but the energy in the room had shifted. It felt heavier, more intimate, like the real party was just starting. I scanned the room, my eyes darting between faces I barely recognized, searching for her. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then I saw her. Sabrina was still with Vincent, but the scene wasn't exactly what I expected. She wasn't laughing anymore. She looked tense, her arms crossed like she was trying to shield herself from something. Vincent was leaning in, too close, whispering something in her ear. I froze. Was she uncomfortable? Was this why she wanted me to come back? Or was I just seeing what I wanted to see? I took a step forward, and Vincent suddenly straightened up, his smile sharp, almost smug. He glanced at me like I was some kind of intruder who didn't belong there. Sabrina turned her head slightly and finally locked eyes with me. I can't even describe that look. It wasn't relief, but it wasn't guilt either. It was something in between, like she'd been caught in a storm she didn't know how to escape. "Leonard," she said, her voice a little too high-pitched, "you're back." Vincent smirked and took a slow sip of his drink, like he was waiting for me to make a fool of myself. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to march up to him and demand to know what he thought he was doing with my wife. But something about the way Sabrina looked at me made me hesitate. She looked scared, not of me, but of something else. I walked over, my hands clenched so tightly they hurt. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Sabrina opened her mouth like she wanted to explain, but Vincent spoke first. "Relax, man," he said with that fake charm that made my skin crawl. "We were just talking about work. No need to make it weird." But it was already weird. The way he was looking at me wasn't how a boss looks at an employee's husband. It was more like he was testing me, daring me to react. Sabrina shifted uncomfortably, and I realized her phone was still in her hand. My eyes flicked to it, and for a second, I saw her text to me glowing on the screen. "Please come back." "Why did you text me that?" I asked her, not taking my eyes off her face. She froze. For a second, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she glanced at Vincent and said quietly, I needed you here." "Needed me? For what?" The room felt like it was tilting. I could feel Vincent's eyes burning into me, and I hated that I had no idea what game was being played here. Before I could say another word, Sabrina grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. We moved to a quieter corner, and she whispered, "Leonard, please don't start anything here. Just trust me, okay?" But trust her? How could I when my gut was telling me something was terribly off? I could see Vincent watching us from across the room, smiling like he knew something I didn't. Sabrina's nails dug slightly into my arm as she pulled me deeper into the hallway, away from the other guests. Her eyes darted around like she was checking if anyone could hear us, and that alone set my nerves on fire. "Leonard," she said, her voice trembling but sharp, "you can't make a scene right now. I'll explain everything later, but you have to trust me on this." I yanked my arm back, feeling anger and confusion bubbling in my chest. "Explain? You've ignored me all night. You laughed like I wasn't even there, and now I walk in to see you what? Whispering secrets with him, and all I get is a text saying, 'Please come back'? That's your explanation?" My voice was low, but it carried enough bite that a couple walking by glanced at us curiously before slipping into another room. Sabrina's face went pale. "I'm trying to keep you out of something you don't understand," she hissed. "Vincent, he's not what he seems. Just stop acting like this is about you and listen for once." That hit me like a slap. "Not about me. You're my wife, and I'm standing here feeling like the world's biggest idiot while your boss treats me like I'm invisible, and you can't even tell me why." My voice cracked on the last word, not from rage, but from something uglier, humiliation. I hated how desperate I sounded, like some whiny kid. She sighed and leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Vincent, he's dangerous, Leonard. Not in the way you think, but if you embarrass him or make a scene, it'll ruin everything. Not just for me, but for us. Please, just keep your head down until we leave." Dangerous? That word clung to my brain like a hook. What did she mean by dangerous? Was she just saying that to shut me up? The idea of Sabrina being afraid of him didn't sit right with me, but the way her hands were trembling told me this wasn't just my paranoia. Before I could ask more, Vincent appeared at the end of the hallway, smiling like a snake that had already swallowed its prey. "Everything okay here?" he asked casually, but there was a sharpness in his tone that made the hairs on my neck stand up. Sabrina straightened instantly, forcing a polite smile. "Of course, Vincent. Just catching my husband up on work talk." Her voice sounded rehearsed, too smooth, and I hated it. Vincent gave me a look that felt like a challenge, then slowly walked back toward the main room, taking a sip of his drink as if nothing had happened. When he disappeared, I turned to Sabrina again, my voice trembling. "What the hell is going on, Sabrina? You're scaring me." She didn't answer right away. Instead, She grabbed my wrist and led me toward the kitchen, where it was quieter. "Just stay close to me for the rest of the night," she muttered. "No questions, okay? I'll tell you everything when we get home. Just don't leave me alone with him again." The way she said it sent a chill through me. For the first time all evening, I realized she wasn't just trying to climb the corporate ladder. There was something darker here, something that made her send that desperate text. But before I could press her for more answers, Vincent's voice echoed from the other room, calling for Sabrina with a tone that made my stomach knot. She froze, gave me one last look, and whispered, "Please, just let me handle this. Don't make things worse." And then, just like that, she walked back into the lion's den, leaving me standing there with my fists clenched, my head spinning, and 1,000 questions screaming inside me. I waited in that kitchen like some obedient fool, but every second felt like it was stretching into an hour. I could hear Vincent's voice drifting from the next room, low and commanding, with that smooth confidence that made my skin crawl. Every time Sabrina laughed, I felt a knot tighten in my chest. It wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was something far darker. This gnawing sense that I was being left out of some twisted secret. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped out of the kitchen and scanned the hall. They weren't in the main room, which had gone quieter as several guests began leaving, their coats slung over their arms. I caught a glimpse of Sabrina's green dress disappearing down a hallway near the staircase, Vincent following close behind with that smug grin. Something in me snapped. I wasn't going to stand there and play the helpless husband while my wife got pulled deeper into whatever mess this was. I followed them, keeping my steps quiet. The hallway led to a series of closed doors. One of them was slightly ajar, and I could hear voices inside. I moved closer, heart pounding, until I could make out Vincent's voice. "You know you don't have to pretend, Sabrina. We both know what this is." His tone was smooth but heavy, like he was pressing her into something. Sabrina's voice came next, quieter, tense. "Vincent, please. Not here." I froze. My chest burned with a mixture of fear and rage. I pushed the door open just a crack, careful not to make a sound, and what I saw nearly made me lose it. Sabrina was standing near a desk, her back slightly turned to him, while Vincent leaned casually against the edge of the table, his face way too close to hers. She looked trapped, like she wanted to step away but didn't dare. I wanted to storm in there, grab her hand, and drag her out. But then I saw something on the table next to them that stopped me cold. It was a folder. A thick, black folder with Sabrina's name written on a tab. Next to it, I noticed a phone, not hers, but Vincent's, unlocked and glowing with messages on the screen. My curiosity got the better of me. I didn't think, I just moved. While Vincent kept talking, I slipped into the next room, which connected through a narrow archway. From there, I could see the desk, but stay hidden from their view. As I got closer to the table, my hand trembled when I reached for the folder. Inside were papers, documents with Sabrina's name scattered across them. Bank statements, emails, even photos of her at work. Why did Vincent have these? It felt like some kind of dossier, something he'd been collecting on her. My heart sank when I noticed one picture. Sabrina standing outside a coffee shop, talking to me. That meant he'd been watching us. Before I could flip through more, I heard footsteps coming closer. I quickly slipped the top page into my jacket pocket and ducked behind the heavy curtains in the corner. Vincent walked past the desk, his voice calm, almost mocking. "You know, Sabrina, your husband doesn't exactly fit in here. You deserve better. Someone who can actually give you the life you want." I gritted my teeth, so hard my jaw hurt. Sabrina's voice shook when she answered, "This isn't about him. It's about you crossing the line." "Crossing the line?" Vincent laughed softly, a sound that made me want to punch him. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You're too smart, too ambitious to waste your life with someone who doesn't understand the game we're playing." "The game? What game?" I stayed hidden, holding my breath, the paper in my pocket crumpling under my grip. There was no way I was leaving without figuring out what the hell Vincent was up to, and why Sabrina seemed both terrified and tangled in his world. I stayed hidden behind that curtain, my heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Every instinct told me to stay quiet and watch, but there was something boiling inside me now. Anger, humiliation, confusion, all tangled into a knot I couldn't swallow anymore. I couldn't listen to Vincent talk about me like I was some useless piece of furniture while Sabrina just stood there. Maybe she wasn't agreeing with him, but she wasn't stopping him either. And that felt like a betrayal all on its own. I stepped out from behind the curtain without even thinking. The sound of the curtain rings sliding against the rod made both of them whip around. Vincent raised an eyebrow, like he wasn't surprised at all to see me there. Sabrina's eyes went wide, her face flushing as if she'd just been caught doing something she couldn't explain. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "What kind of game are you two playing?" Vincent didn't even flinch. He smiled, actually smiled, and tilted his head like he was amused. "Ah, the husband finally joins us. I was wondering how long you'd last hiding in the shadows." His calmness made me want to punch that smug look off his face. "Leonard, please," Sabrina said, stepping between us. Her voice was low, urgent, like she was trying to defuse a bomb. "This isn't what it looks like." "Then what is it?" I snapped, my voice rising. "Because from where I'm standing, my wife's boss is talking about how I don't fit in while you stand here looking like you'd rather be anywhere but near me. And on top of that, I find some creepy folder with your name on it." I stopped myself. Sabrina's face went pale. "What folder?" she asked sharply, glancing at the table. Vincent's smirk faltered for a split second, and that told me everything I needed to know. I pulled the paper I'd taken out of my pocket and threw it onto the table. "This? Why the hell does he have your bank statements, your emails, even photos of us?" "Care to explain that?" For the first time that night, Vincent's charm cracked. He reached for the folder with a quick, defensive move, but I stepped in front of it, my hand on the papers. "Don't," I warned, my voice lower now, every word edged with fury. Sabrina grabbed the papers, flipping through them with wide, horrified eyes. "Why do you have these?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Vincent leaned back against the desk, his hands raised slightly as if to say he wasn't hiding anything. "Relax, both of you. It's just insurance. You know how this world works, Sabrina. People have leverage. I just like to be prepared." "Prepared for what?" I shot back. "Blackmailing your employees? Threatening them until they dance for you at your stupid parties?" He chuckled softly, which made my blood boil even more. "Don't be dramatic. It's just business. Sabrina understands that, don't you?" She turned to me, her eyes glistening now, and I realized she was on the verge of tears. "Leonard, we need to leave. Now," she said, grabbing my arm. There was no hesitation, no attempt to explain further. Just urgency. I looked at Vincent, who was watching us with that same cold, calculating expression. He didn't try to stop us, but his silence was worse than any threat. It was like he was telling us, this isn't over. We walked out of that room, past the thinning crowd, past the fake smiles and the expensive champagne glasses. My mind was spinning with 1,000 questions I couldn't ask right there. Why did she look so terrified? What hold did this man have on her? And why did it feel like this was just the tip of something much darker? By the time we reached the car, Sabrina's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the keys. "Leonard," she whispered, "you have no idea what we just walked away from. But you need to listen to me now. We can't talk about this here. We can't even go straight home. There are things you don't know, things I should have told you months ago." Her voice was breaking, and as much as I wanted to demand answers, I realized we were in way over our heads. I started the car, my grip on the wheel tight, and drove us into the night, not knowing that what she was about to tell me would shatter everything I thought I knew about her. The drive was silent, but not the kind of silence that feels calm or comfortable. This silence felt alive, like it was suffocating us both, pressing down on me with every passing second. I kept glancing at Sabrina, hoping she'd break it, but she just stared out the window, her face pale, her lips pressed into a tight line. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but something in her expression told me I needed to wait. It wasn't fear of me. It was fear of whatever shadow Vincent had cast over her life. We didn't go home like she said. Instead, she directed me to a nearly empty parking lot behind a closed grocery store. I killed the engine and turned to face her, my hands gripping the steering wheel as if it would anchor me. "Okay, Sabrina," I said, my voice low but shaking with frustration. "You need to tell me what's going on. Right now. No more secrets, no more cryptic messages. What is Vincent doing? What does he have on you?" She stayed quiet for a few seconds, her fingers fidgeting in her lap. Finally, she took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was raw. "Leonard, I didn't want you to find out like this. I didn't want you involved at all. But Vincent, he's not just my boss. He's the kind of man who builds his entire empire on finding people's weaknesses and using them. And a few months ago, I made a mistake that gave him exactly what he needed to keep me under his thumb. I stared at her, my stomach twisting. What kind of mistake? She hesitated, and for a second I thought she wouldn't answer. But then she looked me straight in the eye, tears welling up. I took money from the company account. It wasn't what you think. I wasn't stealing. I needed it to cover something for a project, and I planned to replace it, but Vincent found out before I could. Instead of firing me, he told me I owed him. And since then, he's been controlling me, making me go to these parties, making me act like I'm part of his circle. I swear I never did anything with him, but he wants me to look like I belong to him. It's like a leash I can't get off. Her words hit me like a punch. I leaned back, trying to process everything. So all this, the way you've been acting tonight, the way you ignored me, that's because of him? She nodded slowly. He told me not to bring you. He doesn't like anyone he can't control. But I couldn't say no without him suspecting I'd told you something. So I invited you, thinking maybe if you saw how he was, you'd understand why I've been so distant. I rubbed my face, trying to hold back the storm building inside me. Part of me wanted to scream at her for keeping this from me. Another part wanted to go back to that house, grab Vincent by the collar, and make him regret every smug word he ever said. But I couldn't do either, not when Sabrina was sitting there shaking like she'd been living in a nightmare for months. So what now? I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me, her eyes fierce despite the tears. Now we have to find a way out. He's not going to just let me walk away, Leonard. He's the kind of man who collects people, who ruins them if they cross him. But I can't keep living like this, pretending everything is fine while he's pulling the strings. The weight of what she said settled over me like a thick fog. We weren't just talking about a bad boss or a toxic workplace. We were talking about someone who had power over her, someone who wouldn't hesitate to destroy us if we made the wrong move. I reached over and took her hand, squeezing it even though my own was trembling. Then we'll take that power away from him. Somehow. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was searching for the man she'd married beneath all my fear and frustration. Then she nodded. There's something else you need to see, she said quietly. Something I found in his office before you came back. It's worse than I thought. And if we're going to do this, Leonard, we need to be ready for what we're walking into. I didn't know what she meant, but the way she said it sent a chill through me. I had no idea what was waiting for us, but one thing was certain. The night wasn't over. In fact, it felt like it had only just begun. When Sabrina said, "There's something else you need to see," I felt a wave of dread wash over me. But at that moment, something shifted inside me. I was tired of being the weak, confused husband. Tired of letting Vincent's shadow dictate how I felt about my own wife. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Show me," I said. She pulled her phone from her bag and handed it to me. On the screen was a series of photos she had taken earlier that evening, while Vincent had been distracted. They weren't just random documents. They were proof of something much bigger. Vincent's private files, evidence of shady deals, stolen company funds, and, worse, a list of names. Employees who had been manipulated just like her, trapped under his control. "He thinks he's untouchable," Sabrina whispered. "But if we give this to the right people, he'll lose everything." I looked at her, feeling a fire light in my chest for the first time that night. "Then we end this," I said firmly. "Not tomorrow, not someday. Tonight." We drove straight to a friend of mine, Eddie, a lawyer I trusted more than anyone. It was late, but Eddie didn't ask questions. He took one look at the documents and the photos, and I saw his eyes darken with determination. "This guy's finished," Eddie said. "I'll make some calls. By morning, he'll be facing a corporate investigation he won't walk away from." For the first time in months, I saw Sabrina breathe, really breathe. It was like the weight of the world had slid off her shoulders. On the drive home, she leaned against me, her hand gripping mine like she was afraid I might vanish if she let go. "I should have told you sooner," she said quietly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I thought I was protecting you." I squeezed her hand back. "We protect each other," I said. "That's what this is supposed to be. No more secrets. No more letting people like him win." By the next day, everything changed. Vincent's smug smile was wiped from the world. The company's board moved fast once Eddie dropped the evidence in the right hands. Investigation started. Whispers turned into headlines. By the end of the week, Vincent wasn't just out of the company. He was facing serious legal trouble. As for Sabrina and me, we sat on our porch that evening, watching the sun go down. It was quiet. And for once, that silence felt good. Healing. She rested her head on my shoulder and said, "Thank you for not walking away when you could have." I looked at her, realizing how close I'd come to losing her, not just because of Vincent, but because I had almost let my own fear and doubt drive a wedge between us. "We're stronger than this," I told her. "Stronger than him, stronger than all of it." She smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in a long time. And in that moment, I knew we had made it through the storm. Not just as a couple, but as a team. Vincent's games were over, and we finally had our lives back.